Hey there. We're now going to talk about the styling of the data tables elements. And what I'm referring to on that is like the search menu box, the information, the pagination, and the actual header of the table itself. So let's look a little bit into the fundamentals of what that looks like. In the data tables builder, we're really going to be looking at the CSS tab right now, and maybe a little bit with the HTML. But we added a few new features here for the CSS to be able to help you understand where to put this class and this styling elements. So in the template, I've added a few features, and I will go over those in the demo file. But we're talking about, we've got something where we control the actual body of the table, and we'll show you that. And then we're also going to look at customizing the table in this lesson. In the future lesson, we'll keep going and expanding on this template builder. But that's the area we're going to focus on. And what I want you to kind of get excited about, or whatever is the possibilities. So when we go into the demo file next, we're basically going to start out from what we had in the last lesson, is this kind of rudimentary table. We've added a little bit of cell bordering and, every other line kind of feature styling there. But now we're going to take it and enhance it to do something else here. So we're going to talk about, colors. We're going to, resize and reposition stuff in the actual report to look more like this. So let's go over to the demo and learn how to take this to this. We're in the demo file 5.2 CSS DataTables Elements. We have a lot to cover, so let's hit quick start. Okay, from the last file that we have, we're going to duplicate the Bootstrap, and from this lesson on, we're going to continue with Bootstrap. All right, so do our normal action and duplicate this record. And of course, we're going to keep the naming conventions going right, but let's make sure we keep that documented, and the rest can stay the same. All right, so some of the things that we need to do is take this right now and do a couple of features. So we're going to go over to the CSS tab, and I talked about this briefly in the video, but I've added these new helper templates. So when we're building a CSS, you kind of know where to put this. All of this is custom. So what we're adding here is going to build on top of the native libraries that we have in there. So when I say reset to CSS template, basically we're just putting some body components in there. And this is hard-coded right now in the script, but you can go find that and change it in your own file. So reset the CSS template adds a section here called custom CSS for the body. And so all we're doing is to the body element of the HTML, we are changing the font size to Roboto 9 point and width of 98.5. So let's just go look and see what that looks like first. Okay. You can see dramatically that everything kind of shrunk, right? I've got smaller font, my font changed, and I made the width a certain percentage here. So that's the first thing. I'm going to leave that in there as just as my branding. If you want to use a different font, you just got to do that and change your template. Easy enough. If I wanted to say, hey, I'm going to make this 12-point font for my whole body, you can see how easy it is to change the entire style that way. But let's go back and make it a little bit smaller. And back to where we are. The next thing we're going to do is look at this button in this lesson, adding a section for customizing the CSS table part. And really the difference here is when we get to the future lessons, we're going to be talking about the columns, but the table is really the what we're trying to change about the data table itself. So when I add this feature, the template's just going to append a certain section of code to what's ever already in this file. So you're not going to overwrite anything in here, but it will just append what you're doing. Okay, I have a little placeholder in here just to put something in there, but I have it basically to do nothing. It's just kind of a reference for you. But if you wanted to, you can see there's nothing happening. If we go in here and we change this, and I'm just going to make it really dramatic. I'll put a 5 in there, and you can see how it changes the effect of that. So let's just go back, reset this. The wrapper is something you'll kind of learn about, but it's really just the shell of the entire data tables itself. All right, on to the fun parts. So what we're going to do now is a couple things first. What I want to do on this is change the background color of this header. Okay, so we need to get the code to do that, and I'm going to just put it in there for you. You can find whatever you want. So, but these are just examples that you're going to need. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to copy a piece of a class that I am calling my header. All right. So what I've done here is when you put the dot before a class name, that means it's specific and unique to this solution right here. It's not just native from the library and you're modifying it. It is your own presentation. So I've labeled my class called my header just for examples here. And I've put a few attributes into this style. I wanted some padding. I made the vertical alignment be middle, and I'm changing the background colors and the color of the font. So that's what I'm actually doing right now to the header. So now that I have the class my header in there, we need to actually go over to the HTML and put that in here. Now, I don't expect you to know this right away, but this is by learning and seeing this happen a couple of times, you figure out where you actually need to assign that class. And I know that within the table, I have to assign the class my header to this element. All right, so let's go see what doing that looks like. All right, pretty easy to see that I visually changed the background color and the font to be black, right? But now let's just see what happens if we want to, you know, how easy it is to maybe change that. So I'm going to copy another bit of code. And what I want to do is I'm just going to paste a new section in the same header called, you know, vertical line middle. That's the same. We'll just get rid of that. The background color this time is this color with white being important. So what does that look like? All right, we can see that we've changed the color, we've changed the white, but how can we have two of the same in here? Just know that within CSS, the rules are whatever comes last overrides anything before. So if you've had something that was already declared above, and then you somehow override that change in the end, that's going to take precedence. So again, I'll just prove that to you here. If I take this color that I just added, the blue, and put it before the other color, we're going to see that the purple came back. Okay, I'm going to, for the purposes of this demo, stick with the blue. And there we go. We now have our header. All right, perfect. Let's see what else we're going to do. Now we're going to focus on changing a few things. So to get ready for this, we're going to work on modifying where these items are placed and, you know, shortening this up. So to do that, let's return to our function and let's go in and change some settings. So when we hit the integration settings, what I want to do here is I'm going to change the default DOM positions, because right now it says filter line. It's got a different thing. And I want it to be a little bit different. Searchable is true. Paging's true. We're going to say simple numbers. Sure. And then length true, but I'm going to change my length on load to be 10 for our purposes of the visualization. So let's submit and close that. And we're going to come back here. And you can see that the 10 now made this small, and we can see the pagination at the bottom, the search, none of the styling didn't change, just where I positioned them. Okay, so we're set up next to now do something a little unique. We're going to add a background to this top section because technically it's a data tables, but it's got, this is part of the wrapper section. And so we're going to add some CSS here. And again, all of this comes from me digging in, playing, trying to figure out how to stylize this. So natively, you aren't going to know like that's how you were supposed to do it. By practicing here, going into the data tables, Googling, whatever you want to say, you can find out how to change certain elements of your data tables as well. So let's go back into CSS. And this time, underneath my header, we're going to enter a hard return. And I like to keep a spacing in there just so I can read it better. I'm pasting this function. So we are adding a data tables wrapper thing. And we're saying in the first part of that, I want to put a background color and add some padding and a radius. So what does that look like? Okay, you can kind of see pretty easily here that this is the area I'm talking about. It's a wrapper section. It's the first row of the wrapper, which goes all the way around the data tables. And I've set the color and I've added a little padding so that we can see the difference here between the elements, right? There's just a small smidge of that. All right, now the part that really I like is I don't like how this space is here, this and here. It natively data tables will put each one of those on its own row. So we're going to go in and force those all to be on one row and share some style. So to do that, the code I'm going to paste in here, and give me a second, we're going to have back over to CSS. So when we're done with this, this top part is going to change. In here, again, let's go to the last one, and we're going to copy and paste what my my CSS is. And so what I want to show on this one is natively with data tables filter, we that's the name of the filter box, which would be the search box. The info box is that, and the link. So you can kind of figure out where things need to be modified. But the cool thing about this is what I'm saying is on all three of these elements, they're going to share these same attributes and styling. So what I'm looking at here is that they're going to be in an inline block, and you'll have to look at some research on CSS just to kind of do this. That's how I figured out how to do something. I wanted to look this way. I went and dug out and said, okay, this is what the code is for that. I natively don't know how to do this, but there's plenty of opportunities for you out there to research alignment, fonts, whatever you want it to look like. What I'm also doing is I've been saying, hey, of you guys, I want you to all share 33% of the width. That's what that means. Transform everything into uppercase, use the font Roboto, which we already have declared, but just to reassure in case something else took over. And then I'm actually increasing the point size on this and adding a little bit of padding. So let's go see what that looks like. Pretty cool. All right, so here we still have that gray box that we built in the last line, but it shrunk because it was encompassing the other things because they were each on their own row before. But this time we forced it to all belong together. But there's a couple things I still don't like. Right here, I can see that this show 10 entries is really smudged up against here. So what we're going to do this time is add a little padding to that. Let's go back to our CSS. We're going to go back to the bottom of this. Now I want you to see what I'm doing here. Do you see how this data table's length right here is already up here? But now, since I'm declaring it all by itself, I'm saying do all of this, but then on this one only add one to the left padding. So let's go see if that actually did what it did. Perfect. Do you see how it moved over? That's good. All right. Cosmetically, I still have an issue with something. I really don't love, I don't love that this looks a little not centered to me. So what I'm going to do is go add another styling to just this element. And if you can guess from before, we had filter, info, and link. We're talking about the data tables info area. So what I'm going to put here is on that, I want the alignment to be centered and I want the padding to be 0. All right, so let's go see. It did move it over. So basically I was saying, don't pad to the left or the right that you had before. I want you to be completely centered in this, in its area. So that's starting to look better. I think we can kind of leave that. One thing I'm going to just kind of show you guys here is I'm not sure that I love showing 1 to 10 of 350 entries uppercase. So I'm just going to shut that off right now and see if I like it. So I went back to the ones that's sharing everything and I said uppercase, but let's go see. Yeah, I think I like that better, but I might end up coming back later and saying this one won't be uppercase and these will. But for now, I'm just going to leave it like that. So because they all shared that style, I could do it that way. Or I could have just said, hey, on those other ones, do uppercase. So you can see the flexibility of that. Let's now look at this area. This has always kind of bothered me about data tables. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's just never really seemed to match the other elements styles anyway. So let's go ahead and change this feature right here. So I've got the code here to say, well, I've already done the research to say, well, what is this area? We're going to go back to CSS down here, and behind the info, we're going to paste this amount of code. So we're talking about the paginate area of the element, and we're going to give it a background color like we did for the wrapper, and we're going to add some padding. So what does that look like? Okay, you see similar up to the wrapper, we added some background colors, and you can see the padding is just in that thing. How much space does it have between the edges to give it a little softness? Now, what I want to do is, I think I want to move this whole thing to the center. I don't really love that it's over there, so I'm going to give that a try. Okay, and let's copy my code for that. Come over here. Bear with me as we add another. It gets quite long, but you can understand how you build things here. And perfect. This is now centered. I like that better, but the fonts still drive me nuts. They're not the same as the rest of the data tables. So let's go figure out how to do that. Okay, and back to our CSS. We're gonna come back down to the bottom. And I have this placeholder here, begin custom classes for the table, and end down here to help us keep organized, so that you know where to put the right CSS when we're talking with the builds here. Let's paste this. And what I'm doing now is, after research, I've learned what I am trying to change. I'm saying in that pagination area, I want to take the active title and the link and change it into these things. When I'm active, I want it to be Roboto 10 point, kind of matching what I've done up here, and have this background color and stuff like that. So all we're doing is restyling a certain element. Let's go see what that does. Okay, kind of did what I wanted, but it only styled the active element, like what I described. But I want this entire thing to have that same font. So we're close. Not that much more to do with this, but we basically need to take the item, like the rest of this, and give it the similar style. So bear with me while I get that for you. Okay, so the last feature that we need to add to make that last one's be the consistent format is called page link. Again, you kind of have to do a little bit of research to be able to figure out what it is you're styling, but by inspecting the element, those kind of things, you should be able to do that. So I'm basically just saying, hey, I want the rest of it to be a 10-point font size. Sweet, they all changed, looks pretty good. I can still navigate, get around, do all of that stuff. Previous page, all the navigation still works. What I really don't love though, let's just see, I don't love that this gray bars here. It kind of looks a little distracting. Maybe we'll use that in the future as like a footer to hold something, but because it's all part of this background for the pagination, I don't think it's necessary. So as you go through things, you might go, you know what, I'm going to add and try things, remove that. This is where you would do this. I remember that this is the pagination area. So all I'm going to do is either I could delete this, but if you just comment out, it basically also says, don't use this. So right now I have no background to this. It's centered. I may not stick with that in the end, but I know how to change that by just disabling that or modifying my styling on that class. So the last thing I'm going to look at here too is we removed that uppercase. Let's just go see what that would look like if we turn that back on. And we unblock that. All right. I mean, it's okay, but I'm not a huge fan of this one. So to just show you how nimble you can be, if you go down to the info section, because that's the only one we want to change, I am going to add this transformation and say, no, I don't want any. I don't want any. And then went back. So you can change it, then change it back. And that's what the part of the lesson is to figure out what you actually need to do. This part takes a little time on understanding, but you're getting there. Keep sticking with me. We're going to keep going through. Next thing up is we're going to start talking about how we're going to stylize these columns using the columns builder and classes. So stick with me. We'll see you in the next lesson.